far? Sorry. Jay was 18 years old when he became king and reigned for 3 months in Jerusalem. Yeah, just the difference of 10 years. You know?
It's 10 days, actually.
18 years old and 8 years old?
I've got 18 and 18. Are you referring to that or his reign? I'm sorry.
When he was 18 years old.
Let me look. 2 Kings 24:8.
24:8. And then Chronicles 36:9. I didn't feel bad, but highlighted in the book.
Well, in the meantime, while you're looking, Scott.
Yes.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think, even with the contradictions that you found, that those alone would disprove the Bible as a whole, or just disprove those specific parts?
That is a fantastic question, which I was actually kind of thinking about, because I wasn't sure whether I was coming into this debate trying to prove whether or not I felt like these contradictions would necessarily make the Bible invalid. But I think what it does show is that because we have to rely on these, as you said, the differences in languages and translations and stuff, that I think that it's just none of this. There's nothing in here that's exactly what it would have said. And there is just what we find as discrepancies are the things that came up that we were able to actually tailor out as being the discrepancies there. And I think that there's tons of things that we'll never know necessarily, because either it was like, oh, that doesn't make sense, fudge it out and write in what does make sense. Maybe that happened, obviously written by man. So,
Is there anything in here that you think is true at all? Jesus existed, maybe.
I would be willing to bet that there was probably a guy who may have been called Jesus who probably had a really large following and was probably crucified. I would not ever go so far to say that he was the son of any deity or a Messiah.
All right.
Although that only means anointed one, so just a word.
Did you find us?
Yeah, I would like to say that I originally thought that the alleged discrepancy here in 2 Kings 24:8, it says he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem, and in 2 Chronicles 36:9 it says that he reigned 3 months and 10 days. And so I thought the original discrepancy was the issue of the 10 days.
Oh, I didn't know that. Sorry.
which my response to that, since I brought it up, would be a rounding thing. I know you're not leveling that against me, and so I don't expect you to defend that as an alleged contradiction, but it's for that, it's a rounding thing. There's the 3 months in Jerusalem and then the 3 months, 10 days. We obviously round all the time in our language, and I would expect the Bible to do the same if we expect God to be able to communicate to us in a meaningful fashion. Now, as far as the 8 years old, when I originally prepared this, I was using a different translation, which actually rendered both as 18. So this is kind of an issue with the textual criticism. Now, looking it up in my NASB, I do realize that in one it says 8, in the other it says 18. Again, I would go back to my position that the Bible is inerrant and infallible in the original autographs themselves. And so here what we have is obviously a copyist error. Now, whoa, he mentioned a copyist error. This is not something that we don't assert in the Christian understanding of inerrancy. So we have a copyist error here, and it's important to note that the difference between 18 and 8 in the Hebrew is basically the equivalence of one small line. And so when rendering numbers that way, it would be very easy for a scribe to miss that small line. It might have been smudged or something of that sort. And so in missing that small line, you have 8 instead of 18. I think it's very obvious here that once you look at the context, again, I alluded earlier to, in textual criticism, we refer to something that is called tenacity. That is, that in the manuscripts we have, the original reading is there somewhere. So we do have the original reading here at this point. It's I'm going to try it, Jehoiakim, I don't know, Jehoiakim, was either 8 or 18. One of those is the original, due to the tenacity principle that we've talked about. And so I would assert that after examining the text and looking at either, it's pretty obvious that he was 18 years old. So that's my stance.
Okay. It's possible, but it's an assertion nonetheless. And I'll just come back to the point I was talking to John, is just how many of these exist that we just don't know about. That the line was smudged just enough that it was copied all over the place. that way, and may have just changed the message here a little bit, changed the message there a little bit, until you're not really sure what the message is anymore.
Yeah, I would state, first of all, that when you examine textual criticism, no major doctrines or assertions, whether or not this guy was 8 or 18 when he became king, is very irrelevant to any sort of salvation issue or major doctrine of the Christian faith. Highly irrelevant. And no areas of textual criticism, no manuscripts that we have actually, and if you examine one manuscript, for example, textual criticism, you have Byzantine manuscript tradition and what's called the Alexandrian manuscript tradition. These typically vary the most among all types of biblical manuscripts. And when you examine both very closely, if you apply the same rules of exegesis that you do to any other text in the Bible, you will get the exact same religion, the exact same Christianity, as you would by examining any other of the manuscripts. So you might get a little smudge there or something there, but it's largely irrelevant in 99.99% of the cases, and in the cases where, okay, it is relevant to some sort of doctrine, that doctrine can be found somewhere else in the text, and we can look and examine and usually figure out what the original rendering was.
I think you're bringing up a very interesting point, because there's kind of two different views. Some people think that the Bible was translated from the earliest manuscripts. Other people kind of have this view that it's been translated from the latest transcript.
Right.
Like it just kept getting translated. Did you want to address that?
Yeah, that's the difference between Alexandrian manuscripts. Our earliest manuscripts in textual criticism are of the Alexandrian tradition. We have manuscripts from there that date almost back to the first century and several in the 2nd century. So those are Alexandrian manuscripts. Now there are two stances here, and like I said in the beginning, many people who deny the Alexandrian manuscripts, the further on manuscripts, hold to a Byzantine-only position, and oftentimes they carry that into their English translation and say, hey, my English translation of the Bible is inspired. Obviously, I've stated that that's not my position, and I don't think it's the majority position among Christians nowadays. So that would be a Byzantine-only position, while the earliest manuscripts are typically Alexandrian in nature.
So then Bibles today are being translated from the earliest manuscripts we have.
The majority of them are. The English Standard Version is based on both the Byzantine tradition and the Alexandrian tradition, but obviously the earlier manuscripts usually take precedence when you have a discrepancy. But, for example, the King James Version of the Bible and the New King James Version of the Bible translate a Byzantine-only position. So these are just kind of differences in the field of textual criticism. Again, we're not debating textual criticism tonight, but it is important to understand that field when we come to interpreting the Bible, as we've seen already with the few contradictions we've looked at, or alleged contradictions.
Do you want to keep going on your list?
Yep.
Can you see it anymore?
Yeah. It's getting dark, but my eyes adjust. I don't know if the camera will as well. Let's see. We actually have an almost exact same sort of issue, so we probably don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. Is 2 Kings 15:33. Pull that up real fast. Right there. And then, what was the second one? 15:33 and 15:30 actually, so very, very close to. Wait, hold on. Oh yeah, I was actually really confused by this one and didn't want to use it because it was all weird. So I'm going to skip that one.
Okay.
The next one I was going to was, it was actually 2 Kings 18:26 and then 2 Chronicles 22:2. And this one is another one having to do with a discrepancy of numbers. Specifically, what I was thinking, what I thought was funny is the fact that I had one set of information, I have a set of information here and a different set of information in here, because according to sources that I had, it was saying that there's a difference between him being 22 and 42, and in here it was the same. In both passages said he was just 22. So
that might have been similar to the issue that I had
yeah.
with preparing for the last one. Yeah.
Right. So I think that one is actually just very, very similarly related to the other one that we were talking about. So again, don't have to spend a whole lot of time on that. I'm actually going to skip then to the next one, which is 1 Kings 16:23.